A very expensive Mickey Mouse watch hits the market. A new watch company starts up in India. Is the SKX the ultimate dive watch? Welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Chris. Chris, how have you been?
Excellent. Enjoying the long weekend?
Yeah, it's been Labor Day weekend here, so I actually managed to knock out a review, which will be coming up soon. It's probably going to be one of the last watch reviews I do for a while, while we concentrate on this news content and also with work and everything. It's just finding the time for these things.
Nice.
But anyway.
Nice.
Well, Chris, you wanted to kick it off with an update to the One Watch Challenge that we've been doing.
Yeah, let's do. I mean, it kind of like falls into a wristwatch check too. So still have it on C65 chronograph on the color strap, and I got a little strap story. So it comes it's a like the vintage diver strap, right? And it comes with the vintage diver buckles, which are these little tiny thin, I could grab them, but like they're maybe 3 millimeters thick, and there's 2 of them, and I couldn't stand them. So I had to, so we have a strap down. So of all the things I can nitpick, I'm going to nitpick the keeper on the back of so this is a silicone keeper that I replaced it with. Nice, big silicone one. Works great, so that's what we're going to go with.
So it's the Tropic strap,
original,
the Christopher
that's
Ward
right, the Tropic strap,
own-branded Tropic strap.
Correct. The keepers are a little small, and they kept kind of flopping out and going everywhere. So I was like, I need something more substantial. And so, yes, I definitely feel like if that is the only complaint I have, we're doing pretty well.
Yes, and I'm also wearing my Christopher Ward as well. And because we've been doing the One Watch Challenge, if anybody's not familiar, the month of September, we did it last year, but we've head on over to the Facebook group because we've got a couple of members we're trying to wear the same watch for the entire month, aren't we? But we're the rules are allowing strap changes, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah. Like don't put your watch in danger. Don't endanger it. You don't have to, no power tools. If you don't have, you need to take a shower with it, it's fine. But go crazy with strap changes. And it's interesting. We'll continue to have this discussion. I enjoy almost the opposite too. Like the people that like refuse it.
Protesters.
So you got a couple.
We've got some protesters.
Yeah, the protest. Right. And so I'm totally fine with that too, because it brings some interesting dialogue into it. It's like, well, why would you do that? And this sort of thing. And it's great. So I'm enjoying it. And we'll also enjoy the stories.
Yeah, and head on over to the Facebook group. We've had a ton of new members. I wanted to do a shout out to Marcelo, who joined and said that he really enjoys our high quality content. So before he realizes he's joined the wrong Facebook group, and he meant to join Teddy Balbazar or Barker Jack.
Yes.
But no, we appreciate it. And we've had quite a few new members this week, so welcome everyone that has joined. We've got some great conversation going over there, and especially about the One Watch Challenge, people sharing their collections, people winding me up about homage watches.
Nice. We had a Chrono group, the OC Chrono group got together.
In person.
Yeah. So it was good. We had, a bunch of masks, and we were being safe, and people that didn't, we were doing stuff kind of outside, inside. Everybody was being safe, and but it was like our in person for the first time in a long time was a lot of fun, and I got some comments that appreciate the podcast. So thank you to my OC Chrono group guys out there who are tuning in.
You've had a watch obsession this week, haven't you?
Yeah. Speaking of the Chrono group, I had a friend who I follow on Instagram post up this picture, and I'll make sure I get a copy of it to Sam so he can show everybody here. But it was a picture of a cool looking field watch. Looks, titanium field watch that I had never seen, but it had gotten water in it. And so the movement was kind of all rusty frozen, and he had taken a picture of it, and the person that posted it, he didn't know kind of what movement it was, and kind of assumed like it was just, it was a Kickstarter, so it was like a Chinese movement. Wasn't really sure. And I took one look at the automatic rotor, and I was like, oh, that's a NH35. Like, I just knew it. It was a little special moment for me as a watch geek. So I was like, hey, are you going to, do you want to do anything with that? And so I just reached out with him on Instagram, and, because I'm, apparently open for projects here at the workshop, I said, hey, you know, like I've got parts and pieces. Let me take it apart. Let me see if I can get it going again. So that was a project that I kind of put on my plate. I didn't even expect to have completed it, but like Friday, I had it all out and cleaned up, and so replaced the movement in it. And again, we'll show you some pictures. I've got it here and got it going again. But I want to definitely. So here it is. And so I'm not going to mention the brand, but maybe you know who this is. And the reason why I'm not going to mention the brand is because it's a Kickstarter brand. And now I'm going to warn the audience about why you shouldn't buy Kickstarters. So this one inside was kind of rough. So I was not pleasantly surprised, or I was very unpleasant when I opened this up. So yes, it has a Seiko movement in it. It's off the shelf Seiko NH35. So, you know, decent enough microbrand movement, totally fine. Reasonable for the price that I think that they were selling them at. They put a brass movement holder in that didn't quite fit. And so if the crown was not in, the entire movement could actually move.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe there was like a gasket that was missed because apparently this watch was taken apart before. Don't really know the entire backstory, so could be something there. But I was definitely sort of disappointed when I got in there. And again, this water, you know, we had water ingress into the case, and that was sort of the first thing I wanted to track down is like, can I make the case waterproof again or water resistant? The crown tube only had one rubber seal on it. So one single seal. So very much your dress watch, right? If you were looking at an ISO certified diver, if you were looking at a Seiko Turtle, if you're looking at any of the Seiko divers, you would actually have two O-rings on the crown stem itself that would make a seal, so that you kind of have double protection there. So this only had one single one, not on the crown, but actually in the tube. And that, you know, I think part of the reason why Seiko puts it on the crown is because it's easy to inspect. You can see if it's damaged. If it's up inside the crown, and you have to dig it out with tweezers carefully anyway, so like the chances of you destroying it are high. Just trying to like inspect it. So was able to find a replacement for it. Everything else, the seal on the back of the case was fine. But yeah, maybe it was because this was like an early watch, again, Kickstarter. But you know, this stuff is fraught with danger. So this is why, you know, this kind of goes back to our conversation we were having, you know, like this is why you pick maybe a brand with more authenticity, more experience,
yeah,
than some of the newer Instagram darling watch out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've bought two watches off. I mean, the Walbrook was a highlight. The Mayan one that I bought the first time round was not. It looks stunning, but there was definite QC issues. I think because oftentimes these are new brands that are starting up, they don't have that supply chain, that trusted supply chain behind them yet.
Right.
I think you do have to wait till. Sometimes you have to wait, but a lot of times you're getting a watch, but you're really backing the company at the same time. So if you really believe in the vision, then the watch is sometimes a bonus. But...
Right. Like almost, I mean, if you go into it thinking like, if this is their first watch, you're a beta tester, basically.
Yeah, you are.
So some of the decisions they made, the click spring on the bezel was starting to rust. So I don't know what they made that out of. And I don't know why they didn't coat that, but I coated it. So hopefully it'll be okay for the next 100 years. But little things like that, little details like that you wouldn't know if you just saw it. So I mean, again, not to take anything away, I love the dial-ons. A super unique dial on this watch. Fun, like I'd never seen it. Looks, you know, totally looks the part of like a military field watch.
Looks Tabasco-ish, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah. The case is that, like, the side profile, definitely, of that, like, you know, that, like, It's that
like an industrial
sandblasted,
oh, yeah.
Sandblasted finish, not polished or brushed. Industrial, cool. So yeah, and it wasn't too much money, but at the same time, like I think it holds some sentimental value, and certainly I wanted to have the challenge of keeping it running, but I definitely learned some stuff when I was in there.
I mean, I've not really had a watch obsession. Something interesting did happen as well. I ended up selling the X33 watch. Now, I'm not going to talk about how I sold it yet, partly because this week's sponsor is Chrono 24. I sold it through another means that wasn't Chrono 24. So I will talk about it next week because the process hasn't finished yet, but it's a process that we've talked about in the past, and I know that the audience will be interested in how I got on with it. So we'll talk about that, but the X33 has gone. Well, okay. Let's dive into another thrilling episode of Hit or Miss. A little bit of background here. The hit or miss this week is this Mickey Mouse watch, but a little bit of background here. For anyone that doesn't know, I am a big Disney fan. More of the theme parks. I love the theme parks. It was no accident that we ended up in Orlando, Florida, as one of the destinations we wanted to live at. So I naturally would like a Mickey Mouse watch. In fact, I own that Mickey Mouse Invicta watch. But this one, so this comes from, they're calling it the Gerald Genter watch. And Gerald Genter was the designer, I've probably pronounced his name wrong, I apologize, the designer who did the Nautilus and various other watches. But this, I didn't realize that the company sold to Bulgari in 2000. Anyway, they've created this limited edition watch, which is a Mickey watch, and it's kind of inspired from his previous one. This one, I believe they've made a platinum and a steel version, but this is of course Hodinkee. And
there's a lot. I didn't realize Gerald Genta had a icon. Like he's got there's a logo. His logo is on there. His name is on there.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
So they're using his name, even though he sadly passed away, I think, in the early 2000s. But yes, so this will be limited to 150 pieces, and this is going to be $16,500. So it's got an interesting movement inside, but
it's got the hand is it's a jump hour, I assume.
Yes.
It's got the
yeah. So you've got the
I see. So the hour. And then the minutes are Mickey's hand.
I am a big Disney fan, but this is a ginormous stretch for me. But I do know there is some very wealthy Disney park fans. So I think this will sell out. But what do you think, Chris? Do you think this is a...
Yeah, I think if you're, what's it, Club 33? Is that what is that the wealthy fans of it?
That is.
Yeah, that's the level of fans that we need in order to afford this one?
Well, yeah, if anybody doesn't know what Club 33 is, it's a super exclusive VIP private membership club, and the clubs are actually in the Disney parks. So there's one in Disneyland, there's a couple over here. In fact, I think there's one in Epcot, there's one in certainly in the Magic Kingdom.
The waiting list to get in is years. Is just years.
Yes.
And then once you're picked, there's some monetary financial responsibility that you
absolutely
that you could of levels of this timepiece.
So this is certainly you're spot on. This is probably aimed squarely at, there's the original, squarely at
okay. Go put the original back up. Okay. So my first thought was I was going to ding them because they had Gerald Genta's name all over it. And I was a little like, this is kind of like the car designer, Pininfarina, Enzo, putting all of that, putting all their name on all of it, right? Where you're like, oh, it's the Pininfarina Lotus or whatever. So I was a little taken off by that, but the original does say Gerald Genta on the dial. So, okay.
I'm probably going to get some comments in the comment section about this. I think this is a hit for people that can afford it, but I also think it's very expensive, and
Right.
you can definitely buy mouse watches with Mickey Mouse where both of his hands tell the time for considerably cheaper. I think
exactly.
I didn't realize this, that Citizen is the official watch partner of the Disney parks. Now, it makes sense because the clocks are Citizen, and obviously they've got the tie-in with the other things, but that little shout-out for Citizen there, it wasn't a Rolex or Omega thing.
Yeah. And then pretty good for Citizen, too, because that opens them up to, like, all of the... Don't they do... Oh, that's right. They do all the Star Wars watches?
They do, and the Marvel.
Oh, yeah. That's a big deal for them. Okay. Yeah, good for Citizen there. Yeah, normally I had only one bone to pick there, but I'm going to say it's a hit, too, with the same caveat that, like, you're a Club 33 member. It's a hit.
Maybe for the watches that I review or the watches that our audience loves, it's way overpriced for what it is. But for that specific high-value Disney fan, I think it's going to be a hit.
But we gave you options, so pick up a nice Citizen if you can't afford the Gerald Genta design.
well, next up, Hodinkee was showing this Longines. The article writer here, Logan Baker, was really taken by this. It's one of their... They call it... I forget what they call this now. Is it like the legendary or the iconic range or something? The Spirit watch.
The Spirit, right.
But it comes from that. Where, I mean, Longines really did a good job of those watches last year, these pilot-inspired watches, but this one is in titanium. What do you think of the look of this?
I like that they went with the no-date version. I did not like the date version of the Spirit.
I hate that it's got no date on it.
Yeah, but I feel like where they put the date, they chopped off half the three, that's so it looked like the edge of a B. And they left so instead of completely removing the indice, they left like this half B indice. It was very strange. So I'm glad they didn't do that on this one. Cool. I mean, titanium field on a NATO looks amazing. I like it looks like the bracelet's different. I don't remember the originals having.
Looks very Omega-esque, doesn't it? That bracelet
with the inner polished link there. Interesting. Yeah, I don't remember if the original had it, but it looks the part.
I like the look of this. So it's grade 5 titanium, superluminova, 40 millimeters, which I think is a good size.
Perfect.
And it's using the... I don't know if Longines use... I mean, they're owned by Swatch Group, aren't they? So it's probably... Let's just see if this caliber L888 is actually a version of... I'm sure it's not in-house. Sure
it's the Swatch cheeky way to cheat in-house. I mean, I'm not cheating it, but it's basically like they have ETA, so they're like they can claim in-house because it's like one giant conglomeration. So
it's COSC certified. And
oh wow, okay.
2,650 with the bracelet 2,750. So do you think that's what do you think of that price range?
Fair. That's fair. Now, I just watched your Mike France interview.
Yeah, big plug for last week's show.
And was super stunned that he just gave away the cost of COSC certification.
Blown
just
away.
Was like, just like gave it a name. So if you didn't watch that, definitely check out that interview. But he was like $50. So I'm sure it is less. I'm sure there's some scale. If you're Breitling and you're sending them every single watch, I'm sure Breitling doesn't pay $50. But the fact that it's that cheap, so it definitely helps me and Sam calibrate. So when I see the COSC certification, I get excited because we're both accuracy snobs. I get excited, but now I know sort of what value I would have put. Like maybe 250.
I thought it was in the hundreds. I would have put it was in the 100 because those Swiss companies where they offer both, some Formex and a few others that offer COSC and non-COSC certified, don't they? And there is a delta. Mike was saying that the reason that there's sometimes a cost delta beyond its actual core cost is because it does take 3 weeks, which is satisfying to know that, but also why aren't all movements... You would think all movements in watches that are over $1,000 could be.
Yeah, or at least you would want the company that is building those to do the same certification process. You know, like I've seen, I saw a thing that I think you can bring. Like, I think you can bring it in-house, like actual, but it has to be like a separate area, and it has to be like controlled by, like, it's like, it has to be like, you know, controlled by a separate company kind of thing. But you can bring it in-house so they don't have to like ship the watches, this kind of thing. But yeah, you make a good point. Like, why, if you know what the certification is and you know what it takes, why not just buy the, you know, the handful of testing machinery that, you know, that you're putting these, you know, $2,000+ movements watches together to get that done. So interesting. Yeah, I think MSRP land of, would you say 2200
2750 with the bracelet.
2750. Okay. Yeah, a little pricey. I would expect that to come down to be in the actual, you know, purchase price, like 2,400. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know if I never
Swiss
I know Breitling
titanium.
you can always get them on grey market, but I don't know about Longines. Is that grey market, darling, as well?
No, I don't think it's necessarily grey market. I just feel like they're a brand that their dealers usually discount. So we're used to, you know, living in the Rolex world where you're absolutely not getting any sort of discount off of suggested retail price when they have the watch at your dealership. And I want to go off on a Rolex tangent, so we'll put a pin in that. But the brands that are out there now, you know, we'll often see, you know, 15 and 20% off as for dealers to offer. So don't be afraid, you know, if you go, you know, you're not going to get, you know, don't start with 30, but like, it's totally fair for you to expect or ask for, you know, a 5-10% discount on a new watch. So for those of you in the market. And, back to my Rolex thing quick. I talked to a friend who, have you heard that Rolex dealers are now putting in not the demonstration models? Have you heard about this?
No.
So apparently at certain dealerships, allegedly, they're putting in these display models so that they have something there to show people. Because, you know, as we've discussed, the problem is basically they just have these empty stores in Las Vegas and New York, etc. So I guess they're putting like watches with like either with like the weight of it that don't have movements in them or something.
Really? Like they used to do with mobile phones back in the day.
Yeah. So I'd be curious if anyone listening has some more info on that. We'll have to check in with our Rolex dealer.
Yeah, I mean, I would be amazed if Rolex did that based on the fact that they don't want those demonstration models getting into the wrong hands, do they? Especially like a watch. Like if somebody got that case and then started putting their own movements in them, or somebody stole it and passed it off as a... I mean, I would think that was more of a... You would also... I don't know how they would get around it except for having the watch... How would they get around?
If I was going to do it, I would it would be a special machine case. I would just literally make it so that you could put a dial in it and put glass in it, and that's it. Like the back of the case would be just a block.
Yeah, but then you know what I mean?
But
then you've got a real responsibility that you need people still to feel the quality, don't you?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I think that they maybe have tried to do that, so it has the case back on it, but like maybe it's empty inside. We'll have to. Yeah, I'm curious on this. So this has some. We'll have to do some follow up on this one.
Yeah, that's We'll come back to that later. Okay. Well, next story or next subject I wanted to talk over, and this actually stemmed from a Hodinkee article, so I'll give Hodinkee a little shout out. But I didn't realize that there was a new Indian watch company that had been set up, and it's called the Bangalore Watch Company. So as I did some research, the Hodinkee article actually not only talks about this, but it talks about Indian watchmaking in general. And most people, when they think of Indian watches, they usually think of two brands. They think of HMT, which was, I think, a nationalized watchmaker in India. And I can be corrected on that in the comment section. And a lot of people think that Rado is an Indian company, but it's actually that Rado is just, that's where they sell the most.
That's what they're marketing. Those, yeah, interesting.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and they're quite, really good watches, the radar watches.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I didn't realize that technically Favre Louvre is Indian as well. It's sold to an Indian firm from a Swiss company, so that was an eye opener. That was something I didn't realize which is interesting because Favre Louvre is obviously a very specialist dive watch maker, and you don't hear them that often, really. They have that distinctive watch that has where the hour hand is almost insignificant. It's just literally a triangle.
Right.
And the minute hand is it. So diving instruments. They do some mainstream ones. But this Bangalore watch company, they're really going back into wanting to create a luxury watch based in India. And they've got some interesting ones. I thought you'd like this, Chris, because these ones are actually, they're making them in homage to the Indian space program.
Oh, okay.
So we've got Horizons and things like that.
Oh, okay. So for Mars and etc. Oh, yeah, there you go. Nice.
So this is going to be based around space exploration. It's a husband and wife team.
Oh.
I think, or it says they're partners, so they might not be husband and wife, but they look to be quite interesting. I'm not sure what that is in dollars. What those rupees
and it's got some.
dollars.
Looks like it's got some GPS coordinates in the dial. Seen that before.
Here we go. So so they're just under $1,000 basically. So it's using Salita movements. So that's a pretty good deal, really, if you wanted, especially if you're from India and you're looking for that. What I thought was quite funny, and this is a little poking fun at my own countrymen, but India is also very good at cricket, a lot better than the Brits are. So they've created a cricket watch to do the various timing features as you're playing cricket, and they've even got a cricket player on the back there.
Yeah. Celebrating the sport that we are better at than you.
Yes,
that you gave us.
That we get, exactly. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Certainly one that I'll be following. I know I was always interested in getting a HMT in for.
It's interesting. I think as we kind of go down the road here, it's interesting to see the countries that are interested in either establishing themselves or sort of reigniting the watchmaking in that particular country. And the U.S. is we're certainly an example of this, where we'd love to rekindle it. I was thinking that we should probably expect more of this, and we'll probably continue to see more of this from more countries that sort of getting into the luxury watch space and kind of striking out on their own. I'm trying to think of, China is very known for their replica stuff, but they have their own brands that are trying to establish themselves. And
then you've got the Hong Kong-based ones like Phoebus.
Phoebus, and then again, the Seagull movement, as well as the company that's in China. It's all good because they're trying to establish that we're making these luxury watches and sort of embracing the heritage and technology. It's great. It's good to see.
Well, before we go on to our next story, we are sponsored by Chrono 24. If you're interested in selling a watch, they do that great buyer protection. You can store your own watch collection on there as well, which is really cool, and see how your overall collection is trending against the market. That's a really handy feature that they've got. They have a watch scanner tool as well. They also have virtual showrooms. They have the global shipping. They have that great escrow service where the buyer transfers money to you and it stays in escrow, or you transfer money via escrow if you're buying a watch. Great selection of new, used and pre-owned, and also vintage watches as well. So a big thanks to Chrono 24 for again sponsoring the show here. We're loosening it up now. We had a few news stories, but this one kind of got me riled up a little bit for reasons that will become evident now. But Hodinkee once again are singing the praises of the SKX as if it's the the gateway drug for mechanical divers, and they've obviously done their own article on it about the value proposition of it.
Yes.
But they're saying,
Sam, this was written in 2014. That's when this came out?
This was not surprise exactly. This is news off the press from 2014, when everybody was when the TGV was the only game in town in terms of watch YouTubers,
and it absolutely was the dive watch for everyone, 100%.
Yeah.
Now it is not.
Well, exactly. And so they've written this article about it. I'm honest. I've owned an SKX007. I've owned an SKX009. I don't know why the turtle isn't talked about as the best, the gateway drug for dive watch fans, because in every single way, the turtle is better. I don't understand the obsession with the SKX009. So I just had to get that little momentary rant out, but I don't even know why Hey Dinky have written an article on it, to be perfectly honest.
I'm confused as well. I think that back in the day it had a cult status. I think it still kind of does. The 007. It had a cult status, and it was like one of those watches that ISO certified, and it just had the like right specs, and you could pick them up for like $200.
Yeah, and you could mod them dead easily. There was a bunch of people doing some great mods for it as well.
Yep. And so that went away about 2 years ago. So they stopped making them. They've replaced them. Their new 5KX is what we're calling it, the Seiko 5. Not ISO certified, more expensive. I mean, yes, you could certainly, talk about inflation as why it's more expensive, but it doesn't seem like we got more. It seems like we're getting less for more cost.
Mark at Long Island Watches does his version of the SKX. He used to mod SKXs, and now he's got a similar watch that he makes that, again, is better in almost every single way. He's got sapphire crystal on there. He's got the hacking movement. The movement is hand winding on there as well. That was the thing that really, for me, let down the SKX007 and the SKX009 was the awful movement that they put in it, the 7S26, that they could have easily have put a better movement in it that had hacking, it had hand winding, especially because they were really pitching this as like a tool watch.
Right.
Well, you can't.
Yeah, it went from, and we've, not to belabor the point, but it went from a great value and an okay movement at that price point, and then that all changed. And so that is, when you're in the $350 range, or you're into, and God, Hidinky, how classic is it that you're pushing a watch that no one can get anymore? It's discontinued.
That's their thing, isn't it? Because I remember, I think goodness. I would hazard a guess that I might have even paid like $120 for mine in 2015, and in 5 years they've in excess of doubled the prices for.
I mean, I think that they certainly they recognize their success. And so they had to change it, and life moves on, that kind of thing. So pick yourself up. Long Island Watch, great replacement. Even any Orient diver, Orient's got some great stuff for that price point. And I can think of a couple more that that really are the brand king. But boy.
I think the turtle is more iconic. It wears better. It looks better. Almost, and there's equally the amount of aftermarket modding things that you can do to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So next story, I'm giving Hodinkee a lot of love this week, aren't I? I think.
We're back and forth on it. We're swerving down the road with Hodinkee.
We are. We're on a roller coaster. They usually do an article each week about interesting watches that they found, ones that have gone to auction. And they do have some really interesting ones, like movie watches or one-off references. But one thing really spurned my mind today, or I wanted to talk to you about it. They have this gold Daytona, right? Mm-hmm. And it's obviously extremely valuable because it's a gold Daytona. But one of the interesting things with it is that it's engraved with Jimmy John's on the back. So it's obviously given to a Jimmy John's employer. Now, I'll just very briefly, for anyone that's outside of the US, Jimmy John's is, what would you say, Chris, a more upmarket version of Subway?
Yeah,
Yeah, they kind of cut
a good
the
way to do it.
meat.
Yeah,
I think their shtick is that they cut the meat kind of there as you're queuing up.
Yeah, there's usually, for whatever reason, there's usually, like, you know how there's like 1 or 2 people at a Subway? There's usually like 80 people at a Jimmy John's.
Yeah.
It's like they usually have 7 people, and there's like people coming and going and doing deliveries, and they're hopping all the time.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy John's is a really good sandwich. Not a show sponsor, but if they want to sponsor next week, when a Chrono 24 sponsorship runs out.
whatever it takes for us to get a gold.
Yeah. So the question I've got for you, Chris, is there any, and we've got to be careful here how I word this, but is there any, do you think having a company name on the back would ever devalue a watch in your mind? Maybe we'll keep this more lighthearted, because I know certainly there's some, you could go down a political angle with this, where some companies that you didn't like morally agree with. But
right.
Do you think if you had McDonald's,
like DeLorean Motor Company?
I think that would make it more value. I would love that.
I think so now. Well, I think it would be less valuable in 1980, and then it would be extremely valuable now.
Oh yeah, you can still buy DeLorean new. You can, they can still make them out of the parts, which is amazing. I think that is it might even be in Florida, but the fast food chains you could probably get away with, because they had that Domino's Rolex, didn't they?
Right. But maybe like okay, I can give you another fast food example. Jack in the Box, during their like food poisoning in the 90s.
Oh yeah, or like Chipotle when they had their food scare.
Yeah, like food scare. Oof, yeah.
I know at first hand that I worked at a company which when I back in the day, and it got bought. I say back in the day, it was only a few years ago, but they got bought by this other company that I worked for. We got bought by a huge telecoms company. But they used to give their salespeople watches that were engraved. So there's a bunch of Rolexes, a bunch of Rolex Datejusts out there in the wild that have this company's logo. And the company no longer exists, and you wouldn't know them.
Interesting.
They weren't like a brand name. It was a telematics company at the time. So I suppose the random ones, that would probably annoy me more than if it was a well-known company.
Yeah, check out my .com. My .com company that no one knows about.
Oh,
from
what
2000,
would be cool if you had something like one of the ones that what was the one, Enron, that went out of business? I bet you that'd have a cult following.
Yeah, maybe. But also, there are people would be mad. They're like, I wanna buy your Enron Rolex and then drive over it.
Yeah, I bet you that would be a good speculation, because that's still very much, there's people that lost their pensions and everything. But once these things end up ultimately becoming a parody, don't they, in the future? And I wonder whether they would become more collectible because of that. It's interesting that you say that, but one of the very, very expensive watches that I reviewed at Bob's Watch is one of their vintage ones. I think we talked about this at the time. I couldn't show the back of it because somebody's social security number was engraved, and apparently that was a common thing. Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, my mom did that back in the day. She put our social security number on a television. This dates exactly when I was alive. She put it on a television to be like, so that like you'd be able to trace it, to be like safe. Like, and she knows now not to do that, but like, yeah, that was the thing that you did. Totally, someone's social security on it. Well, that's great. You can just like, you get a nice used Rolex and some identity theft, some light identity theft.
It's amazing how the internet has really caused that identity theft thing to happen big time, isn't it? Because otherwise it would be, you would go into the car dealership and they'd be like, oh, can you prove your social security number? Be like, well, I've got this TV that has it. Is this as good as
exactly
this huge
it's like, I have these belongings so that when they get stolen, like, again, because in the 1970s, like this was how you were going to thwart crime, by writing all your personal information down. Now it's just like, cannon fodder. It's just more information for the thieves.
Yeah, it's actually
so don't do that.
actually your social security number's more valuable than the TV that you're writing it
Yeah,
on.
definitely now. Yeah, exactly. And again, this is from a time where televisions were not $100. So they were like, televisions were much more than that, and you had one or maybe two of them in your house.
Yeah, it took three people to move it because it was so heavy.
Yeah, I had the console TV downstairs, and then had that's right. No, it was the television that my parents got for their wedding. So we're talking like early 70s here. So yeah, that was like like a prized possession. And so it's funny now how it's like we have robots and we make TVs and they're super cheap. Sorry, Earth.
Yeah,
but fascinating.
I think you're right though. Depending on what the company is, depending on what the company logo is, it might increase the coolness of it.
Yeah, I feel like a Jimmy John's, Jimmy John's, whatever, versus a personalized engraving that you had, kind of nothing to do with. And I was thinking, what's the engraving on the back of Steve McQueen's one of his watches? It's like his wife engraved it, and it's
watch, yeah.
Paul Newman's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Paul Newman's. Yeah, and his wife engraved it, and it was just drive safe me. It was just like drive safe, comma, me.
But it wasn't
and that was
even,
it
wasn't even engraved that well. Somebody did it with a Dremel or something.
Exactly. Just kind of took a screwdriver and just kind of, it was rough. It was rough. But yeah, that's almost like a, if it's an engraving that's not like nondescript, then it's kind of like of a cool story. But yeah, whenever there's like personal information on it, I feel like, oh, well, I guess I'm now the caretaker for this piece.
Well, when I reviewed that Norcane watch, that they engrave a plate on the side of the watch, and it is removable, and they will make you a new plate. So you can either remove it, or if you have another kid, they can engrave the kid's name, or if you get divorced, they can take your wife's name. So they can actually they've actually thought ahead of that, how to engrave a watch. And of course, Rolex is now the only thing you can customize. To my understanding, is the engraving on the back. They don't print on the dials anymore.
They don't. Tudor
do it, but
Yeah, there's certain rules. Don't get personalized license plate with your significant other. Don't do that. That's no. I mean, I know you can change the plate later, but yeah, that plate idea is good. On Christine's Stova, they gave me the option. I was not creative at the time. I was dumb and not creative, but they did give me the option to engrave the rotor.
Oh, interesting.
So that's kind of, so it's like, so on those display back watches, you can actually laser something into the rotor, you
could put something really clever like "You give my life balance" or something, couldn't you, on the rotor?
No. You spin me right round.
Oh yes, exactly.
Exactly. Perfect. I missed the opportunity. I have to go order a rotor from Stova. I'll be right back.
Well, guys, let us know in the comment section, or even better, head on over to the Facebook group and let us know if there's any, keep it civil, but if there's any engravings on the back of watches that you might not like. But as always, we really appreciate you watching and listening. And also welcome to all of our new listeners on Audible and over on Amazon Music. So welcome to the fold, everyone. We just became live on those platforms. So as always, we appreciate you watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.